here for the Mike Dolbear web show, and I'm just trying to find our guests, Mark Schulman and Gregg Bissonette. I've got one more place to look. Let's just check in here. Oh. I might just give them a moment if that's all right.
Excellent. Well done.
Well done.
I didn't know you were so talented.
Who are we? Where are we? Let's do this. Come on.
So anyway, welcome. I don't know what's going to happen today because as you can see on the sofa, I have got my good friend Gregg Bissonette and Mark Schulman.
So that means I'm not your good friend?
You are. You're both my good friends.
Okay, good.
I'm just going to sit back.
Yeah,
and
just
let
sit
you
back.
Yes.
We've got Gill.
And our new best friend,
Who's
Jill.
Nice.
sitting here.
Who was here. She left
She was
us.
asking-
I wanted to sit there. I wasn't allowed to sit there.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
Well, you know, because you got to keep us.
Well, you got to
Well,
keep
you should
you
keep
two
them separated.
Separated.
Gotta
So
keep 'em
anyway, can
separated.
I keep you on track here, guys?
Yes.
So
Depends.
let's start with you, Ringo. Let's start with Ringo Starr over here. So
He's my hero. He's my hero.
I know you're a huge Beatles fan.
Big time.
I've been to the house. I've seen the house. And so, what was it like for you to get the Ringo Starr gig?
Oh my gosh, it's the greatest thrill ever. And I'm a huge Ringo fan. I always have been. He's my favorite drummer, the greatest song drummer ever. And to be playing side by side next to him every night, Mike, I have to pinch myself because it's just, I watch his snare. Pinch me, please, pinch me. A little to the left. And I have to just stare at his snare and get into his groove because his groove is just the best. His time feel, his dynamics, the way he plays a song, verse in the middle of the snare, chorus on the rim shots, just so musical, never overplays. And he's now, after 13 years, we've been really good friends. And I wake up and go, Ringo's my really good friend and he's my hero. And it's just amazing.
I mean, how long during you started working with him was you actually allowed to ask him all the questions you wanted to ask him?
It's funny because he kind of knew that I went around the world as Mark does, and we do seminars, clinics. Yeah. And I've been to Mark's clinics, and they're phenomenal. We're a lot alike. We're very, very good friends, and we recommend each other for gigs, and we're just pals, So when we do clinics, we talk about what we're passionate about. And I, for years, and I still do, I go around the world telling people why he's my favorite drummer and why Come Together wouldn't be Come Together without I tried to do that left-handed, but all these songs, Ticket to Ride, how he's got this swing, how he's got a lot of great technique. He doesn't always use it. He uses it in the right place. Try going with double stops. It's hard. He's got the same speed that a Buddy Rich would have with the he doesn't overuse it. And so one of the first things he says when we're at the first rehearsal, my brother's there and we're all hanging out, and he says, "So, I hear you go all around the world telling people how great I am. That's so great." And I'm just going, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, ask me some questions." And, all right.
Here's my book. Here we go. Right. Oh,
and he just talks about, drums. He couldn't tell you every drummer on every album. His heroes are Cozy Cole, Topsy, and Gene Krupa, and he, the first drummer in Bill Haley and the Comets. He'll tell you the songs he loves, and he knows drummers, and he knows parts, and he loves music. But he said that, I gave my son Zach his first lesson. What did you show him? Well, I showed him the beat. I said,
the beat.
Which beat? The bossa nova, the ting, 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 ting. He said, no, the beat. And he goes, and I said, oh, of course, the beat. He said after he got that, a couple of weeks later, I showed him the other beat, and I thought,
there's another
beat. Which could it be? It must be ding, 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 ding. No, the other beat. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. And he's just given me so many lessons about playing musically and being. He says, I love that you read music and you make charts and you know what all these guys are going to do. Cue me on that, because you take care of that and just cue me. But he says, I always ask for lyric sheets because I want to know when they're singing and not singing. I never want to step on the lyrics. And it cracks me up like gospel chops.
Yeah.
Gospel chops.
Yeah.
Isn't gospel like the gospel? You're not supposed to play Amazing Grace. How sweet. The words are the most important thing. Don't
Yeah.
cover up the words.
Yeah.
Same with songs. You got to really watch if you're playing with Miles Davis, don't cover up the trumpet with the melody. There's times to play and there's times not to.
Yeah.
And he's really always
Excellent.
the number one guy for me for that.
Thank you very much.
Can I just say one quick thing?
Yeah.
We're talking about Ringo and songs. Mark invited me to one of the greatest shows I've ever seen in my life in Australia when he did the Pink show, and he played every song exactly the way you're supposed to, but yet when it was time, he was Mark Schulman and he cut loose. And one of my heroes right
Yeah,
here.
well, I have to say that I was also at that, not in
I just
Australia,
love you, man.
Love
but
you, man.
again, we had the honour of coming to see Mark play with Pink. He got tickets for all the family. We all came down. We had a great show, and yeah,
Because you have a lovely family. Man.
thank you very much. And it was an amazing gig. It was a great gig. But not only are you a really musical drummer with all the bands that you've worked with, Simple Minds, Foreigner, everyone. But what
Cher.
surprised me the most was halfway through the show at the Pink concert, you get off the drums, you come at the front, and you pick up a cello. So tell me, how did
Cello.
that?
Cello!
Yeah, I mean,
Well, all right, as the story goes.
Yeah.
So my story, I'll just be very quick. So 3 years old, with my family, watching the Beatles on TV, right? Just glued, my eyes are totally glued. I see John, I see George, I see Paul, and then I see Ringo, and I'm like, I see that big, beautiful nose, and it's like, and then I see all the screaming girls, like that's it. So I knew at that point, it's like drums had chosen me. I sat down at a drum set when I was 5 years old. I could play, you know? And then all I wanted to do was play drums, and my mother said, no, they're too loud. Can't you play a nice instrument like your brother Randy? He plays violin. So my brother was playing violin, taking lessons from my Italian godfather, who was a local music teacher. And so I'm at one of my brother's, violin lessons, and I see this kind of big thing standing in the corner. I said, Mama, I want to play that. It was a cello. Wow. So I started playing cello because they didn't want me to play drums, but after a while, my godfather was giving me a little drum lesson at the end of every cello lesson. And then at 9 years old, they finally bought me a kit. They couldn't deny my passion any longer. So I continued to play cello like you played trumpet, right? So I continued to play cello. After a while, I kind of didn't play anymore. But then it was actually my brother bought me a cheap Chinese cello when I was in my 30s. And I kind of had it around, and I thought, it's kind of fun. I'd pick it up every now and then. So opportunity comes up. We're rehearsing for the Pink tour. And there's a song that has strings on it, no drums, and we have a violinist. Jesse Green is on the tour playing violin. And Eva, one of my best friends, she plays stand-up bass. So I'm sitting here thinking, so I started talking to Paul Merkovich, the MD, and Pink herself, saying, I play cello. I play cello. I could play cello on that. I could play cello. After a while, I was like, wow, that could be interesting. So we set up this string section with stand-up bass, acoustic cello, and violin. I had to practice for 2 weeks just to be able to get the cello part down.
Wow.
So that's where it came from. So, but it's an amazing instrument, and it still, to this day, is one of the most gorgeous sounding instruments in my opinion. And I would never call myself a cellist because it is an instrument you really need to practice and play all the time.
But guess what? I know a lot of cellists, and they don't play in front of 30, 50, 100,000
No.
people. You are a cellist.
Well,
man.
I did that, but I haven't played it. But the great thing about the cello is like you, I write songs, I produce.
Yep.
It gave, because it's a fretless instrument, it really gave me an extended understanding of pitch.
Yeah.
And now I really am very cognizant when I'm listening to vocalists or guitar players or anybody else. If somebody's in tune, it can really help me as a producer. Like everything that we do leads to everything else. It influences our musicality. The fact that you played trumpet influences your musicality. Then when you did that Latin, I heard you do that Latin stuff that you'd done, and you played trumpet on that, right? So you actually played some.
Thank you for
I'm
remembering
a
that.
big Gregg Bissonette fan.
I'm a big Mark Schulman.
Can we
fan.
talk about Gregg's record?
We're
We're
going to come to this.
We're going to cover that in a minute, yeah.
We are going to come to this. But you've got a question for Gregg.
I do. It's also known that not only do you play drums, but actually you do voice over work now.
Oh, thank you.
I've heard from many sources that actually how you got into it is a very interesting story.
It was crazy. I was doing, not far from here, I was doing the end title of Finding Nemo for foreign release, the Somewhere Beyond the Sea. And the chart was kind of funky. And from reading, you probably know about the DS sign and the coda, del segno, coda, Italian musical terminology. And my brother was playing upright bass. Great friend of Mark's, Matt, my brother Matt.
Amazing.
He's playing upright, and like Ava does, they play great electric, great upright. And I said, hey, Matt, at letter B, it says there's supposed to be a DS. There's no DS sign on here, and there's no coda. What's going on? And the guy in the booth, who's now a very good friend of mine, one of my best friends, Rick Dempsey, he's the senior vice president of character voices. He says, come in the booth. And he says, talk like that again. And I said, like what? He goes, like that. And he said, it sounds kind of Winnie the Pooh-ish, and we need a sub. Jim Cummings is the main voice of Winnie the Pooh, but they needed a sub for when he couldn't do it. So I practiced and practiced and practiced. I used to just transcribe like crazy, Mark and I both. Vinnie Colaiuta, you work on transcribing Vinnie. Now I transcribe Winnie.
Brilliant. Good boom. These are the jokes, folks.
I'll tell you.
Pet boom, pet boom, pet boom, pet boom, Debbie Boots.
So you do the Winnie the Pooh. You do a couple of other ones as well.
Well, I get to do. I have an agent now because that kind of parlayed into a few other things, and I get to do commercials and different TV show voices. I've always loved doing voices.
We listen to that voice.
We'll listen to his
character.
Come on, give us a bit of your Cockney accent.
Oh, they always tell me I sound like Dick Van Dyke. It's a lovely holiday with Mary. My brother is south of the river. But I love Cockney slang, just the whole concept of,
Good to get us a Ruby then.
A Ruby. A
So,
Ruby Murray, mate.
Let's come to this.
What is that? Where did you get that?
This book.
Who gave you that?
What a wonderful book. I know this has been something that we've talked about on many a road trip, your passion to actually, and I'm really proud that you've actually finally got it out. It's great. I mean, can you give us the concept? What's this book all about?
Well, I've been playing on stage for many, many years. It kind of started when I miserably failed the Bad English audition. Did you audition for Bad English too?
I did not, but I'm a fan.
So back in the day, I auditioned for Bad English, and I thought I was ready. It's going to be great. I finally have this opportunity. The audition lasts about 7 or 8 minutes. I had such horrible stage fright and performance anxiety before the audition, and I ended up rushing horribly. At one point, Jonathan Cain, who we joked about it later because Jonathan Cain's the keyboard player for Journey, and Foreigner and Journey toured together. And when we joked about it, but at one point Jonathan Cain stops the band. It's like all eyes on me, total silence. He reaches out into his bag, picks something up. Can't be, but it is. It's the metronome, and he sets it to the tempo of the song, tosses it at me, and says, Mark, just watch the light. So it was one of those pivotal moments right at the beginning of my career. It's either like, I'm either going to quit now, because it was, after like that day of, the anxiety and reconciliation, and then basically a night's sleep. In the morning, I said, man, I'm resilient. I'm not one to wallow in self-pity. And it was like I had a moment of clarity. And I decided then, I kind of made 2 promises to myself. The first promise is nobody's going to ever tell me I'm speeding up or slowing down unless I want to speed up or slow down. And that prompted me to find the perfect course, the perfect way to really solidify my internal sense of time, because I thought I had good time. I didn't realize that in that situation, when I would get really nervous, that my time would go out the window. So I ended up studying at Jamie Font's school. It was called the Rhythm Course for 2 years, like just every single day, working with a metronome with all these different tempos to improve my internal sense of time. And then working with the drum kit, then all these different styles, all these different grooves, then practicing in front, ahead. I became obsessed with time and tempo, which I now know is the foundation for my success. And in addition to that, the other promise I made to myself is I'm going to bust my nerves and fear into submission. And that actually started like a many-year journey for me to analyze and study and research, and network, discover, until I uncovered some habits and rituals that I started employing in my everyday life. And it wasn't stuff I'd really talked about, but I'd done a lot of studying, and I realized at one point I'd played for like 1 billion people in my life. If I added up, I sat down with a friend of mine, Paul Stoltz, amazing thinker and speaker. He said, how many people you played for? About half are like, oh my God, I played for like 1 billion people. And I thought, I want to write a book. I want to write a book on something that sort of takes the musical metaphor and can put it into other walks of life. And so I was talking to my manager at the time, Steven, and he'd kind of come up with this overcoming life stage fright as one of my one of my sort of speaking gigs, and I started doing corporate speaking, and I thought, this kind of ties it together. Because I had these core concepts that were developed from another friend of mine, this guy named Dr. Jim Samuel. So I took these 3 core concepts, and then I thought, well, I tell my wife, right, as you do, honey, I'm going to write a book. She says, that's great, honey.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk to some other people in some other industries about their experiences, those tenuous experiences where they either step back or step through those moments of fear. So I ended up interviewing everybody from Tony Hsieh, the CEO of Zappos, to astronaut Alan Bean, to actor Jeremy Piven. And these people kind of shared with me stories and secrets and endorsements of these core concepts. So I put it all together, and I remember being on the road with Foreigner, like at the Eiffel Tower in Paris, and like laying below the tower, and I'm on my iPad just writing. And so I just kept on writing, and I thought the thing about a book is you need to complete it. Just keep going and completing it. And so here it is, and I actually completed it.
Yeah, it's excellent.
And it's enabled me to touch a lot of people's lives above and beyond musical performance, because the metaphor for performance, top performance, it can help anybody, whether you're giving a toast at a friend's wedding, whether you're going to be having an interpersonal communication you're nervous about with your spouse, or a sales presentation, or a keynote, or performing in front of 50,000 people, or going live on the air when you're going to have an interview. So I kind of touch on it so there's something for everybody.
Yeah, it's good. Excellent.
And I want to be of service on this planet, man, every way that I can be. And I thought, well, I can do,
And while we're on that, and we're talking about this.
This is, now I
this is
have
your
this
second
record, by the way.
This is your second solo album.
Kind of my third. The first one was a self-titled, then Submarine, and then this.
Okay.
But yeah.
And you play nearly a lot of the instruments on here, and you sing on it.
Well, it's my brother.
And your brother,
all
obviously.
my brother.
Okay.
But thanks, Mike.
Well, the most important thing, although this album is incredible, and I recommend it, is the picture on the back.
See, I like the picture on the front though.
Do you?
I think
Yeah,
the
but that,
spaceman's
yeah,
awesome.
look, that hairstyle hasn't changed.
Do we want to pull out your one from
No,
your
we don't.
car?
my brother.
Hair today,
we got
gone
to
tomorrow?
go looking at the 14-year-old picture. But John Achenbach, one of the main artists for The Simpsons, he drew the Submarine cover, and he drew this. As I was a big fan, and Mark, you probably were too. We're similar in age, and maybe it wasn't big in the UK, but there was a show called Lost in Space. It was before Star Trek, before Star Wars, and there was this robot that would say, "Warning, Will Robinson."
Yeah.
And Billy Mooney, I actually called him and sent him a copy of it. He said, "Oh, I think it's great that his name was Will Robinson, and this robot would warn Will Robinson." And there's a little bit of, kind of social lyrical stuff in here, but it's warning people about, things in the current day in some way. But it's not that, it's more about my brother's comedic sense. He is the record label. He's the producer. My brother Matt, who we played together with Maynard Ferguson, David Lee Roth, Joe Satriani, ELO, Ringo, the Mustard Seeds, our band. He's Elton John's bass player now. Yeah. And he wrote this and said, I'll be the label. I'll write all the songs. I'll produce it. He produced me on every song, played bass, sang backups. And then our old band, the Mustard Seeds, we had our guitar players George Bernhardt and Doug Bossy play on it, and a lot of other friends. But it's all my brother, really. I'm not a writer like he is. He's got perfect pitch. He can sit in the car, drive to a gig, and write a song and teach the whole band, tell them the chords, tell them the notes of the lyrics, and produce it and punch me in. But I'm so happy with it. And he said, hey, since it's our own album, let's put drum solos on every song. Really? No, we're not trying to get on the radio. Let's just do it. And so I'm really, really happy with it.
But he couldn't have picked a more musical drummer, because the drum solos on this record.
Yeah, I know.
It's so, brother, you're one of my heroes and influences. Not because you're standing next to me, but in all seriousness, what makes Gregg an artist is it's not gratuitous. You listen to his drumming, you listen to the musicality. It's like every solo and every song, everything in every song on this record has a purpose. It's one of my favorite records.
Oh, buddy, thank you.
And I love it.
Thank you so much. Well, thanks
Jill,
for mentioning
you have we come to your talking point.
Talking point, yes. So it's kind of, I guess, in some way related to it is basically related to your book, Mark. But in the book, you do talk about dealing with your stage nerves.
Yes.
I just wanted to know, obviously, how you cope with that. And Gregg, do you actually suffer from having stage nerves at times?
Well, my dad helped me a lot when I was a kid. My dad, Bud, he passed away, and my mom, Phyllis, she passed away a few years back. Both of them passed away. But my mom was the vibes player in my dad's band. My dad was a drummer in Detroit, where I grew up. And when I was about 12, I set up his drums and went to his gigs and helped him. He'd give me a little like an allowance to help him set up. And then when he retired and moved out to LA, he became my drum tech for 18 years. He set up my drums. So it went full circle. But I remember being 12 years old and sitting outside this gig, and it was a service gig. Mark talks about service, being of service. His band, the Bud Bissonette Band, was hired to play at a wedding or a party in Detroit. And I said, Dad, are you nervous? He said, I'm not nervous. I'm just looking forward to being of service. I got the list of what the bride and groom want to hear, and I've talked to the family, and I'm going to get to hang with my friends, the bass player, the sax player, the piano player. I'm looking forward to this. He said, you might kind of get a little nervous when you pull up, but you turn that into the positiveness of how can I make the bride and groom happy? How can I hang with my friends, tell some jokes? And I remember sitting as a kid and listening to them tell these jokes, and I'm like, well, you can't hear this one. It was a hang with your friends. And that's what it's like backstage. You hang with your friends, and then you go out and play, and you see smiles, and you think about, I'm going to bring a lot of joy to these people. So if you could turn it around from being, how do you, as Mark said, how do you serve other people? What are you on this planet for? All for me stuff? No. You serve your kids, you serve your family, you serve your friends, and you serve the audience. If you could turn it around like that, I tend to, since a young age, I tended to not really get nervous, but be focused on serving other people, like Mark just said.
He answered it perfectly.
So you've got nothing to add to that then.
And I still got to read the book.
I have a lot to add, but that really is such a great foundational thing. Because when I get overwhelmed with nervousness, at one point I actually started talking to myself, as we do.
As we do.
I said, okay, Mark, what are you thinking about? My nervousness. Well, who are you focused on? Myself. Oh, well, who should you be focused on? Them.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that make you? Selfish idiot. Thank you. And I started laughing, and I realized that really is what it's all about. It's about redirecting the energy. Here's the thing, the foundation, 3 core concepts. So simple, so powerful. Clarity, capability, confidence. Clarity, you identify your goal, determine the skills you need to get there. If you're clear about the goal, then you know what to do. Capability, once your goal is clear, become proficient at those skills. You gotta do the work. If you get on stage and you're not prepared, you should be nervous, right?
Right.
But if you've done the work, that's what leads you to the 3rd C, which is confidence. That's the only way you can actually get to absolute confidence is by having a clear goal, doing the work, and that's what creates the confidence. So if you still have like an extraneous amount of stage fright, you kind of stop and go, okay, I'll give you a few quick tips and tricks. The first was what I said. Remind yourself that you're being a selfish idiot. 2 is, because I talked to a few different people, Tony Hsieh, CEO of Zappos, billionaire, speaks for fun, doesn't do it for money, still gets nervous. I said, Tony, what do you do? He says, well, I always have a go-to story. I always have something that I start with that I know, because you're going to have the nerves after, for 95% of us, unless you have a real cognitive issue, that's another story. 95% of us, you're a little nervous, 30, 45 seconds, it goes away. So you start with something, a go-to story. Like when I do my corporate speaking gigs, I'm always a little nervous. That's why I start playing drums, because drums is easier. Right? The go-to story. So that's one thing. Just have something that you can focus on. You're so good at to let the jitters subside. The next thing is, a friend of mine, Dr. Rhonda Beeman, one of the greatest speakers I know, because I spoke before her, and I said, oh my God, I got to follow her. Amazing. And she said, I am scared to death every time I speak. I said, you're kidding me. I said, what do you do? She goes, I act like I'm confident. And I said, oh, yeah. She says, I pretend to be confident because after about 30 or 45 seconds, my brain kind of believes it. I use the metaphor for drummers as an example. What do we sit on? We sit on, it's a throne. What does that make you? King or queen. Right. The reason why we've gotten the gigs we've gotten, me and Greg, is because there's a confidence that we set up for these artists. They want to know that they're covered. So even if I'm nervous, I sit there, it's like, I put the focus out to everybody else and I act confident. And after a while, again, if I've done the work, I do the work, that gets rid of the stage fright. But another big secret of the book is it's not about getting rid of the stage fright. It's about taming it, it's about harnessing, it's about managing it. You want to have a little fire in the belly. I remember at one point I was playing with Foreigner and I thought it was a big joke. I'd play It Feels Like the First Time like 400 times. And I wasn't feeling anything. And I wasn't in top performance. It's about top performance, right? I wasn't in top performance. I wasn't at my best. I thought, I need a little bit of the fire back. So I started going out at the beginning of the gig and going out to the front of the audience and connecting with the audience, connecting with their excitement.
Right.
Then I started to get the butterflies because fear and excitement, there's so many things I could talk about. Fear and excitement, the very things that excite us will make us afraid oftentimes because it's the same chemistry. And I don't really care why. It's a matter of just accepting the fact that you want to have a little bit of that belly, a little bit of that fire in the belly, because that actually propels you. It's when it gets to the point where it's distracting that it can then overcome you. And that there's a lot of stuff to read about in the book about that. I have many, many chapters, different strokes for different folks. Not everybody can resolve things in the same way, so I like to give a lot of possibilities in the book. But that's a few kind of foundational
go to Amazon and buy the book. Buy the book now, and we're going to go for a little commercial break. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
The badge had to represent what we are and what we do. So it's a combination of ornate. It's an ornate badge, but in the badge there's a message to build and excel, and to inspire and enhance, and that's exactly what our drums do. So people would ask, what makes a good drum? Well, it's everything that makes a good drum, and it's the small detail from A to Z. It's the timber type. It's the gluing of the timber, the cutting, the lacquer, the edges, the lugs, the heads, the hoops. Everything goes together and makes that product. And if it's all good, it's like baking. You get out what you put into it. All the good ingredients, and that's what makes a good drum.
Okay, so what is the Ultimate Drum Experience, UDE? This is an event I set up 8 years ago, which was catering for advanced levels, professional teachers, professional drummers, or keen amateurs, but it's not for beginners. It's a drum course with a limited amount of people, maximum of 12 students in a class, 45 people only on the course, to improve your skills at all levels. This year we have over 8 of the top UK drum teachers and players all teaching on this course, and there's more to be confirmed.
Relive your confident moment.
Sorry. Whoa,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Right, okay, sorry. Right, we're back. Okay.
Morning, Will Robinson. We're back.
Okay, right. So, anyway, we've come to the part of the show which is show and tell. I don't like the look of your eyes here. I mean, I don't know what we've got. So Mark, let's start with you. What have you got?
Well, as I said, mine might be a little bit corny, but I had to bring it. See, I'm actually I love and I adore Gregg, and I support him all the way, but I am truly envious because, Ringo really, I really am as much of a Ringo and Beatles freak as Gregg. And I started collecting some collectibles. I have some other stuff, but I had to just bring the original 1963, 1964 button. It's good, it's Ringo. I love the Beatles.
You didn't buy that in 63?
My wife got, no,
I was going to say.
My wife got this stuff for me. Yeah. But these are original. And a little Ringo doll with a little drum.
Wow.
God, is that incredible? So I did that for you, buddy.
Okay.
Well, buddy,
So that's my
this
show and
guy,
tell.
when my daughter was born, this guy subbed for me in our Beatle band the night she was born. I can't do the gig. My daughter's going to come soon, boom.
And here's a funny story about
every
that.
song perfectly.
Well, a funny story about that is I showed up to the gig, and you literally had every song charted out. And I'm looking at the charts going, I think I'm just going to play without the charts. Because I think I hadn't played a lot of the songs, but I knew them.
Yeah.
Like the whole second side of Abbey Road with a click, and everything was like, and then I'll never forget at the end, Brent Tuggle, leader of the band, lovely Brent, great friend of ours, Brent comes up to me and writes me a check.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I actually looked at him and I said, you mean I'm getting paid for this?
Yes.
Because I was like the greatest. It was so much fun.
You killed it, man.
Oh, brother. Well, in your
what's-
shoes, my friend.
What's your show and tell, or
Well, Mark talks about being a cellist, and he probably around the time he started playing cello, I was obsessed with Maynard Ferguson and Herb Albert, and so I thought I'd bring out my little pocket trumpet and do a little.
Wow!
yes,
You win.
I got to play trumpet on the new Ringo album. He says, why don't you bring your little hone it down? And we played on a song that the band wrote together called Islands in the Sun. The new Ringo album is so unbelievably great. I love every album he's got, but I got to play on a song that we wrote. It's called Postcards from Paradise is the name of the album. The song's called Islands in the Sun. So
Wow.
Okay, well, Gill,
Oh yes. So I'm sorry. I was more enthused by the trumpet that I was like.
Wait, can I say something? Great embouchure, babe.
Oh,
Okay, go.
man. That's the way you...
All right. Well, we're now going to go into our regular feature now with Brent. Brent, what have you got today for us?
Hey, Mike and Jill. It's great to see you guys again. Every month on our show, I do a makeover, a hardware makeover for drummers. What they'll do is they'll send me videos and pictures of their setup, and I'll choose one to remake in my own way using Gibraltar hardware, but I keep all their stuff in the same place. The drummer that I'm doing today is Oliver Brandt. So here's Oliver's setup. Starting with his drums, we have one rack tom, 2 floors, a kick drum, a main snare, and a side snare. This is a 14-inch auxiliary snare. Now for his cymbals, on his left side, he's got 2 crashes and a splash cymbal mounted to his main left crash. We've got a set of hi-hats. Now on the right side, we have a ride cymbal, we have a crash cymbal, we have an X-hat, and then we have a china, way far over to the right. Now he's got a few other accessories on this kit as well. He's got an electronic pad, and he's also got an electronic module. So each one of these drums and cymbals has its own stand. Even the auxiliary hi-hat on the right-hand side has its own stand. Let's see if we can make this a little bit easier. So Oliver mounts his rack tom in a snare stand. For me to achieve this using a rack, I chose to use the GS VMS, which is the stealth rack. Now this is the version without the tom mount or without the snare basket. It just comes with 2 vertical uprights and a bent bar to connect the 2. Now what I did in order to get the rack tom and snare so close together, instead of mounting the snare basket in the front vertical tom, I chose to mount it off the cross bent bar. So I could close the gap between the snare and the rack tom, and it also creates a really cool angle that you don't see very often. And it was also able to free me up for that front vertical bar to mount my crash cymbal. So the snare basket I'm using for the rack tom is the GU ASB. It's an ultra adjust snare basket. Everything on the left hand side was attached to the side rack that I created using a back leg and a 46-inch curve bar. If you noticed his drum module, he had it clamped to his hi-hat stand. To add it to the rack, I used the SC EA100, which is an extension arm that has a rotating clamp on the end. Moving over to the hi-hat, I chose to use a no-leg stand so it completely cleaned the floor space up. Now I just attached it to the rack using the SCEA100, the same as what I was mounting my drum module with. This is the 9707 NLDP. Now to get my electronic trigger pad in here exactly where I need it, I use the SC4425D1. This is an accessory mounting post that has a long down tube, and instead of having a boom, like a cymbal boom, it has an L-rod attachment, which has a 9.5mm post that you can attach cowbells or tambourines or even electronic pads like you see here. And I'm sorry, I just had to throw in Gibraltar stick holder. This is the SCSH. Now the auxiliary snare on the left-hand side is being mounted to the rack using the GU ASB, which is the same snare basket that I'm using to mount the rack tom. Now for my 2 crashes, I'm using the SC LBBT, which are long boom arms. I'm using a very low profile side rack on the left hand side, so I needed them to help me get the height and the cymbals placed exactly where I need them. Now moving over to the right side, I was able to rack all of my cymbals onto a low profile side rack. Now to build the side rack, I used a 46-inch curved crossbar, and the legs I made out of the GSMP, which are a 14.5-inch bar with a rack mount attachment on the end so you can put booms inside the legs. Now I used large chrome T-leg assemblies for the feet. So the ride cymbal is mounted directly out of the front leg using the short boom, the SC SBBT. The crash cymbal is mounted to the crossbar with the long boom that we've already seen, and my china is mounted out of the back leg using the short boom as well. Now one of the main changes that have happened on the right hand side of this setup is how the hi-hat's mounted. Oliver was using a hi-hat stand. I'm using a mini boom X-hat, which is the SC4425 XHMB. This is an X-hat that can be mounted directly to a cymbal stand using a clamp or a rack. It's very small and compact, and it's very easy to maneuver.
You know you've made it when you have your own bobblehead.
Yes.
Do you have your own bobblehead?
I do not.
Do you have your own bobblehead?
No, but we're going to have
Nor
some.
do I.
We're gonna make
But
some.
Brent Barnett, the lovely and talented Brent, has his own bobblehead. And a really cute kid as well. Anyway.
So anyway, thank you, Brent. We've come to this section, use it or lose it.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
And we've used this section to showcase maybe some of the new British drum companies.
Cool.
Even though we're in your lovely country, we thought we'd, especially as I know the British music scene is a big both part of your.
Yes.
And this is a new drum company called the British Drum Company. So maybe you'd like to talk a little bit about this drum.
While you pull out the drum, I'll give you some facts. So British Drum Co. Was launched in last year in September. Basically, they announced in August that they were going to be launching. September they launched, and then at the London Drum Show in November was the official product launch. Basically, it's 5 guys who all play drums who decided they wanted to create and make their own drums. That includes Al Murray, who's a big comedian back home, and also Ian Matthews, who plays the Kasabian.
Great drum.
Yeah.
This is the first official product after the concept, which was shown at the London Drum Co. that they're showing this drum. It is part of a standalone series called Merlin of a snare drum. It's 14 by 5.5. It's made with a maple and birch blend. And the interesting thing that he told me about is it's made by English yew tree veneer finish. And actually, the interesting fact he told me is that because it's flexible in certain parts, that's what they use in the longbows.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and how he's described it to me is that the middle half of it's flexible, which is used in the end, and the other half is really rigid, which is why they're used in the longbow. So when you see it
Sounds
pulled,
so British. I love it.
Robin Hood.
Yeah. So the wood that's used in this is also used in longbows. And so this is their official, their first.
It's a very pretty drum.
Yeah.
So obviously,
really pretty drum.
it's you both play particular branded drum kits, and so I couldn't ask you for. But what do you think about the boutique drum?
I think it's great that
companies?
England has a great new boutique drum company, and I'm a friend of Ian's, and Al Murray's one of my
course.
heroes.
Yeah, of
And
course,
the
you met
guys
him
I've
last time. Yeah.
So great.
Yeah.
But I think it's great that there's another boutique drum line out there.
Yeah, and they're
Cool.
carrying on the legacy, and it's all British made,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Which makes it
yeah.
really special.
Good.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Okay, right. Well, on that note,
Queen's Wave.
we are going to cut away, and we're going to go into Studio 2, where I think the guys have been put through their paces by you, Gill, for 1 minute with. So let's see how they get on.
All right, here we are with one of our features, which is 1 minute with. Mark, are you ready?
I'm ready, and I'm holding the mic. I'm also the official mic holder as
You're
well.
the official mic
ready?
holder. You ready?
Here we go, yeah.
Ready? The favorite drummer you first saw and made you want to start being a drummer?
Ringo,
What hobbies do you have? One hobby.
working out.
Favorite live venue you've played in?
Wembley,
First record you bought?
Monkeys,
Last record you bought?
The Struts,
Flight or tour bus?
tour bus.
Buddy or Ringo?
Unfair. No, I can't divide it.
Apple or PC?
Apple,
How old were you when you started?
3.
Favorite type of food?
Mexican,
Do you play another instrument?
yes.
What is your life ethos in one word?
Gratitude,
Do you keep fit?
yes.
Coated or clear tom heads?
Clear,
Favorite holiday vacation?
Kauai,
Favorite book?
Conquering Life Stage Fright,
Favorite rudiment?
6-stroke roll.
What is your favorite drum item?
Favorite drum item? Snare drum.
That's it. 1 minute. That's 1 minute.
Did I do it?
Yeah, you did 1 minute.
I did it in a minute?
Yeah.
I did it in a minute. Yes!
I've got Greg with me now. Are you ready, Greg?
I am ready,
You've
thank
got
you.
1 minute.
1 minute.
Let's see how many you can get through.
Okay.
Ready? And favorite live venue you've played in?
Wembley Arena.
Flight or tour bus?
5 what?
Flight, like an airplane, or a tour bus? Which would you prefer?
2 of us.
Tour bus. First record you ever bought?
Meet the Beatles.
Well, who was the drummer that made you want to become one?
Ringo.
Your favorite record you've performed on?
Eat 'em and smile.
Favorite book?
The Bible.
What do you do to warm up?
I take sticks and I hit a pad.
Favorite holiday vacation?
Christmas, skiing in Big Bear with my kids.
If you were not a musician, what would you do?
Be a sportscaster.
What do you do? Coated or clear tom heads?
Coated.
Apple or PC?
Apple.
Favorite type of food?
Indian.
Favorite all-time album?
Hard Day's Night.
What's important to you as an artist in one word?
Bringing joy. Joy.
Joy. How old were you when you started?
6.
And that's it. 1 minute. That's 1 minute.
Did I beat the record?
Wow, you two killed it. What was going on
Oh,
there?
man.
Oh,
That was fun.
man, dude. I'm still sweating.
Okay. So,
Yes.
So we've come towards the end of the show. You've been wonderful guests.
Oh, thank you.
I
Oh,
just,
go on.
I've got we've got a couple of little video clips that I'd like to show. First one, Mark, is yourself doing some motivation speaking.
Yeah.
Okay. So actually, let's cut away. Let's just take a look at that first. Okay.
How many of you think in a band that it's the drummer's job to keep the time? How many of you think that? See, it's not true. I thought that too. It's everybody's job to keep the time. Imagine the LA Philharmonic, 120-piece orchestra, if everybody hadn't mastered their time. Timing really is everything. And then I'm very excited because I'm willing to clock those hours. I'm going to be working with my former foe, my former nemesis, my new best friend, the metronome. And I'm going to be practicing for hours a day on that drum set. I'm going to be wailing just like Laura did. And I'm so excited. And after a couple of months, I haven't touched the drum set. Because I find out that the path to achieving one's internal sense of time, the mastery, begins with simply clapping. It's just clapping. Clapping at all the different tempos, all the way down to 30 beats a minute, all the way up to 240 beats a minute. And the goal is to be able to clap with the metronome, but not hear the sound of the metronome. Because you're so synchronized, so entrained with the sound of the metronome, that you cancel out the sound of the metronome for a minute. And it was an amazing thing. You guys want to try it? Just a little bit of it? Stand up, we'll try it. It'll be fun. We're going to start with 120 beats per minute. It's the pedestrian tempo. It's the marching tempo. And all we're going to do is we're going to see how well you guys can clap along with me. I will be the metronome, and then you guys can clap along with me. So I'll start, and then you can come in. Whoa, slow down. See, the propensity is to rush. People want to rush through our lives. We want to rush through jobs instead of just staying in that now. There you go. All right, Bixie, y'all are pretty good. I'll give you that. But where I learned the magic of the universe, the secrets of life, was in the slow tempos, the painfully slow tempos, like 30 beats per minute. Oh, that's where I learned what I don't play is as important as what I do play. That's where I learned to honor the space between the notes. That's when I learned what I don't say is as important as what I do say. And also with all that space, that's where I learned how to listen. Listening is key. That's how you get and keep your gigs, because everybody wants to talk, right? If you're the one that listens, cha-ching.
That's great. You've got them all clapping. IT. Do you lead any of those into playing the drums afterwards? I mean, how does that?
You know what? It's funny because I'll bring at least one person on stage every time I do a corporate speaking gig. And my guarantee to them is within 3 minutes, I'll have them playing either a Foreigner or a Pink song. Nice. And they've never played before. Nice. So a lot of people might go on to actually, but I think they use it as a metaphor and it just gives them confidence. And they have a hell of a lot of fun. Yeah. Because drummers, we are the coolest people on the planet. After all,
sitting on our thrones.
Everybody wants to be us. So, it gives them a chance to actually share in our world. Well, that's what I want to present.
Excellent. Well, you're responsible now for in your motivation speaking to start converting them to buy drums. Okay? Yes. That's your job next.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Greg, also we've got a little clip of you because you're on the CD's got 2 tracks.
Yeah, it's got a
CDs.
CD that you can play along with me playing drums, and then the second CD is without drums. Starts you off with a click, and we've got some clips here that I know you are kind enough to show of me just talking about the CD and who's on it and what it's all about. So,
well, let's have a look. Let's cut away. Let's have a look at this.
Here we go. Most of the album is a band that Matt and I were in called the Mustard Seeds. Matt on bass and vocals, Doug Bossy on guitar and vocals, George Bernhardt on guitar and vocals, and myself on drums and vocals. And we were a band in the 90s, and one of the best, most favorite bands I've ever been in. Another one that's on there, Want Me to Be, it's called I Know What You Want Me to Be. And that's kind of like a, you know that new Daft Punk, not new, it's like a year old now, that funky Daft Punk song where it's real instruments on it, real bass and drums. At least it sounds like it's real bass and drums. Kind of in that mode of the guitar really loud, and a la Earth, Wind and Fire, a lot of the Nile Rodgers stuff, you know. But that's a real funky tune. But I had this idea. I said, Matt, what do you think if I did kind of a little, because it's pretty fast. It's like, I know what you want me. What if we went in the double time swing? He goes, great, let's do it. That's my brother. And of course on his upright bass, or maybe it was fretless. And Wally Minko, when you hear the piano solo that Wally Minko plays on there, just at that tempo, and I played a little jazzy drum solo before that song. But Billy Cobham is one of my heroes, and that he used to do these drummy solo albums where he'd play little interludes of drum solos in between the songs. So I only did that once on this song, but leading into Want Me to Be, there's a kind of a jazzy drum solo. A few other guest guitarists, Dan Strain played guitar on it and also mixed a lot of it, and Danny Jacob, who I mentioned, played guitar, and then also Ron Cohen, great guitar player, played a little bit on one song too. There's another song called Let It Loose, which is our guest vocalist on that song, Ellis Hall, who's unbelievable. Plays organ and sings so funky, really funky. And that's kind of a Tower Power-ish kind of ode to David Garibaldi. Let it loose. Like what is hip kind of thing, but not what is hip. Let it loose. But Ellis and Matt wrote that song together, and that song is Matt on bass, Ellis on keyboards, Danny Jacob, a great guitar player, and Ellis singing.
As an educator, I think that is really important now, you know, for people to be able to listen to an album and now play along.
And a lot of kids are doing YouTube posts of it and Facebook, you know, things, and Twitter and Instagram stuff. I have a social media team that's kind of behind all the people playing and contests, and there's a lot of songs, a lot of different styles, and
that's so great.
Post it.
So great.
Well,
man.
I have to say, we've come to the end. It's been a real pleasure to hang out with two of my bestest friends.
My brothers.
I'm also, while I've got you on the camera,
yes.
Could we have a copy each of one of these to give away as a competition?
You better believe
Absolutely.
So I think we need to have it signed. We can give it away as a competition prize. And if you don't win it, you have to go and buy it. But seriously, thank you very much. Thank you for bringing along your Ringo Starr. Make sure
He gets to hang out with Brent.
he gets to hang out. Yeah.
Now
So
what I'm going to do is I should
anyway,
put it
this
on.
is over the show. So thank
Yes.
you very much.
Amazon-
These are the lead outs.
Amazon
Thank
Guitar
you,
Center.
Swinghouse. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you,
you,
Mike.
Jill.
Thank
Thank
you,
you very
Jill.
much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Greg.
everybody.
Thank you,
Everybody.
Swinghouse.
Thank you.